Hello, I'm Jessie the Sleepy Koala, and welcome back to the second last day of Bookmas. Today, I will be doing something a little bit different in the fact that you won't see my face for most of this video. Instead, you will see me screen recording because I am going to be going through my Goodreads year in books. Now, I have never done one of these before, and I am quite excited to do one because I remember very little about what I read this year, and Goodreads has been very helpful for me because I can go back and actually look at what I read this year and what I thought about the things. So, without further ado, let's get to it. So, this is my 2021 year in books. This is the first year that I've had a year in books, even though I had a Goodreads account prior to 2021. I didn't use it very much, so it didn't really give much of an accurate view of what I was reading and how my year actually looked. So this year I've tried really hard to make sure I keep on top of putting things into Goodreads and then switching the dates, for example, when I finish a book, making sure that that is actually accurate. And I've done that for most of them. Some of them I haven't been able to do that for, so I put in a generic date, but that's okay. We can't get everything right. The other thing I've also tried to do this year is tried to write a review for every book I read. I haven't done this for every book, but I wasn't initially planning to do this. This is something that kind of snuck up on me because I started doing it without really deciding to and then just kept going with it. Originally, I was just doing reviews for books if I felt like I wanted to say something about them. But then I just started saying things about all the books, and at the same time, all the reviews started getting longer and longer. So I did actually start procrastinating on them a little bit because they were taking so much time and effort to write. And I do really like going into that amount of detail. And when I started a YouTube channel, that was actually really, really helpful so that I could look back and know what the hell I thought about a book and what was good and what was bad, because I have a terrible memory for these things. And even if I love a book, I will completely forget what happens in it unless I've reread it multiple times, and only then will things start to stick. So writing these reviews has been incredibly helpful for me, and it is something that I would like to continue doing in 2022. But to get into my year in books, technically the year is not over. It is only midway through December when I am recording this. So there are still books that are not going to be counted in here, but that is okay. But as of the middle of December, I have read 21,410 pages total in 59 books this year. I don't know if that 59 includes rereads. I know that when it comes up with the little number on the different lists, that doesn't include rereads, so I'm not sure if this does as well. I did reread a number of books this year and read a number of books a couple of times as well, so that may or may not be reflected here, but I know in my heart of hearts that I read more than my goal of 50 books this year, and it's a goal that I never really intended to push to reach. If I didn't reach it, if I didn't get near it, that was perfectly fine. I just wanted something that I could aim for, and 50 seemed like a doable number without having to push myself. And if I reached it, that would be fun. I would love to have read 50 books in 1 year. And according to this, I read 59 books. So that's me surpassing my goal, and I'm very happy about that. The shortest book I read this year is Orfeia by Joanne. This book was sweet and gorgeous and so sad, but it was absolutely beautiful. But it was very, very short, coming in at 153 pages. The longest book is Uzumaki, so this is actually not very accurate. I didn't read all of Uzumaki. I read the first volume of it. So it's taking the entire Uzumaki series and treating that as one book, which is not correct at all. So I can't really get much information from this because this isn't, firstly, it's not a book that I continued with. I only read the first volume and then decided it wasn't for me, so didn't keep going. But secondly, this is a multitude of different books combined. The average length of the book that I read in 2021 was 362 pages, which seems pretty accurate for me. I didn't read a lot of giant tomes this year. I haven't done a Stormlight reread, for example, which are over 1,000 pages each, and there's so many of them at this point. I read a lot more books that were around that middle range of like 300 to 400. So this doesn't surprise me whatsoever. The most popular book I read this year, Twilight. I'm sure nobody is shocked by this whatsoever. And the least popular is How to Clicker Train Your Cat, which I really shouldn't have put on my list, but I guess it's now there. I got 2 cats this year and we're looking to clicker train them. And I got a book about clicker training and haven't read it, but I put it on as something I was reading and then took it off because I wasn't reading it. So it is, I guess, now immortalized in my year in books, but it is not something that I really have read, and I really shouldn't have put it on my Goodreads list, to be honest. The average rating that I have given books is 3.4 stars, which seems pretty accurate. I feel like a lot of people are going to end up in that mid-range because you get the great books, you get the not great books, and they just kind of average out in the end. The highest rated book on Goodreads is Crooked Kingdom, which is, wow, okay then. I don't agree with that. If anyone has seen my Crooked Kingdom videos, as much as I loved the book, I found a lot of issues with it to the point that I had to split my review into 2 different videos. One of them is plot analysis, the other is character analysis, and I highly recommend you go and listen to them and then talk to me about them in the comments, because I did really enjoy the book, but it was one that I had a lot to talk about with. I wouldn't personally give it 4.59 stars. That is not what I would give that book. I think I gave the book 4 stars? I think it was 4 stars. It might have been 3 stars. I can't quite remember, and I also can't click off this page because I am screen recording, and if I click off the page, then everyone else can see the screen record. The first review I did this year, Neil Gaiman, interesting. So I read this near the beginning of the year, but I guess I mustn't have put in reviews for the ones before that, which were things like Orfeia, 3 Dark Crowns, Lore, Putin, Prisoner of Power, Overraging Tides. I read those right in January, but I mustn't have put any reviews down to begin with. So my first one was American Gods, which I reviewed at 2 stars. This is a book that I didn't like because it's not for me, but it was also a book that I think was a bit too verbose for what it needed to be. Hence why it got 2 stars instead of, say, a 3-star, because it just wasn't my type of book. I thought it went a little bit too much into description, but it just wasn't a book for me, and I hope other people love the book. I know a lot of other people love the book, and it was one that I just didn't connect to. My list of 2021 books. So this is very long. I am going to scroll through and just point out the ones that have been highlighted by Goodreads. So the first one is Overraging Tides, which I absolutely adored. This I was not expecting to like quite as much as I did. It's a pirate book about female pirates who have this ship where there's a bunch of rules, and one of them is that you can't have men on the ship, and then they promptly have to rescue 2 men from a shipwreck. Then there is this chase to find this thing, and it's lots of fun. I really enjoyed it. Next highlight is Putin, Prisoner of Power. This one was also excellent. It's an audio series that I got free through my membership with Audible. I listened to it in one go. It was very, very interesting and followed Putin's rise from, I think, the 1970s to modern day. And there was a lot of different cogs working. So this is definitely something that I recommend for people who are into history. If you do know bits and pieces of Russian history, this might be a bit simple for you, but I think the target audience is also probably people who don't know anything about Russian history. Next up, we've got Shadows of Self, Bran and Sanderson, my favorite. So Shadows of Self is the second novel in the second era of Mistborn. I love this novel. I think that it has brilliant plot twists in it. I love the world building. It's got so much intrigue. The characters grow so much in this book, and it has one of the best reveals and twists at the end that I think I've seen in a Sanderson book. And you know, that's saying a lot because he has some damn good twists at the end of his books. Also, just the setting at the very end of the book, I love so much. I think he did it very well. But of course, it's not an opening book, so you can't just pick it up and read it. I do highly recommend the Mistborn trilogy and all of the Cosmere. Let me put my Cosmere nerd hat on. I do recommend Brandon Sanderson. I think he's fantastic, and I think there are so many different ways to get into this this incredibly rich and vibrant world that he has created across multiple book series that each have their own unique thing while also being connected to the other book series that exist. Mistborn is the one I started with. I highly recommend it. It's a great place to start. I have an entire video that goes through where to start in the Cosmere. You should definitely go check that out. I will link that. And I highly encourage pick up Sanderson. You don't have to read the big tomes. You don't have to start with the big tomes of Stormlight. I know I wouldn't have done well starting there. But things like Mistborn, they're still epic fantasy, but they're smaller in scope and they're just fantastic stories. Of Circe, I am surprised that this one is highlighted because I didn't finish this book. This book just wasn't for me. I couldn't get into the story or behind the character. It felt like there was just a lot going on that didn't matter. And I wasn't quite sure what the story was or how to follow the plot. So I just kind of put it down and decided that this wasn't the book for me. Next, we have another Sanderson. This one is ReDawn. This one is also not an opener. It is the second book in the novella series that mirrors the third book in the Skyward series. So, not confusing at all. This was a fantastic novella. It is co-written with Janci Patterson. I am so blown away by her work on these three novellas, like completely blown away. She's done a fantastic job. And this one was fast-paced. It was full of action. It was so exciting. This was a great book to read. Oh my gosh, this is all just Sanderson. I'm not surprised because I love Sanderson so much and I'm going to give his books 5 stars because they are 5-star books. So I guess, let's just highlight more Sanderson. Mistborn, The Final Empire. So this is the introduction book to Mistborn that you can definitely start with and where I started. Highly recommend. This is a fantastic book that follows a young girl who is a street thief and pulled into a gang who are trying to topple the empire while also robbing the god that is at the top of the empire of all of his riches. She has to be a spy and go to a bunch of balls and meets all the noble people in the society, and there's a particular boy that piques her interest, let's say. And throughout this book, she learns the lessons of love and friendship. She learns to open up, and she also learns to become a kick-ass assassin Mistborn because she's got all of the magic powers. Just all of them. She can do so much and she is very good at doing that. The last review I have done so far this year is Caraval. I had this book for ages and didn't get around to reading it and had to return it to the library, but then had to go back to the library the next day, and very luckily it was on the shelf again. So I picked it up and definitely decided that this was going to be the first one I read out of all of the library books that I had picked up. And I'm so glad that I eventually got around to reading it because it was fantastic. I love the whimsy in the story and just the magical nature of the world building. I connected so much with the characters and loved both the male and female leads so much. I found it so easy to watch them navigate this world and battle through the plot. There's intrigue and mystery. There's so much whimsy in this. And there was some bits where I thought that it was a little bit too far-fetched, but then I was blown away at the end because it all made sense. The things that they come up with at the end just made everything makes sense. And a lot of the times I don't like this kind of backwards working fixing, for lack of a better term, but I think this one worked really well because all the setup was there and it just needed that final piece to make it all come together. Well, that is the end of my year in books, my friends. I have had a lot of fun going through this. I wasn't sure what it would be like at all, but I've really enjoyed this. And I hope you have enjoyed this too. Thank you for watching. Feel free to check out any of those other videos that I have mentioned. Like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell if you'd like to see more stuff from me, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye!